I just started thinking and contemplating these clients. I was like, okay, what is it that's drawing these 5 specific clients together? And there were 4 sets of values, 4 values that I found that drew us all together as one. That I realized that these were the kinds of people that I was attracted to, or that were attracted to me. And there were 4 things. The first was which I labeled as they swim out past the breakers. And so what I mean by that is they're willing to swim out past the chaos. So you guys, you're familiar, oceans, right? Yeah. That you get all in this mess, and people literally drown in breakers. Like they get in there, and if you get in some high, crazy waves, like it's bananas. It will kill you. Yeah. And they're willing to go out past, get through all of that to learn how to get through that and swim out into open water where they can build the things and do the things they really, really want to do. So they're willing to take the risk of going, that's a little bit of a scary water. There's going to be some chaos along the way, but I'm willing to go there in order to get out to where I really, really want to go and where I actually belong and what I was made for.
Well, welcome back to Whiskey is for Closers, podcast where we sit down with founders who are figuring out how to scale beyond the hustle. Today, we are talking about something most founders skip right over, the formation work that actually determines whether you build an empire or just a big pile of stress, or maybe just a huge mess. Here's the thing. Most visionary leaders have all the ideas. They've got the drive, but what they don't have is clarity because they're too busy drowning in their own stuff to see the real bottleneck. Spoiler alert, it's not usually their sales strategy, it's them, right?
Hello.
That's where today's guest comes in. Ben Weaver built Breakers Consulting because he realized the best closers aren't the ones with the slickest pitch. They're the ones who've done the inner work. We're talking maturity, wholeness, and the kind of clarity that comes when you actually know who you are as a leader. We're going to dig into his origin story, starting at 14 years old, breaking all those child labor laws, unpack what it really means to build on rock instead of sand, and explore why the founders who are scaling fastest aren't the ones who skip themselves to focus on the deal. So grab your drink, get comfortable, and let's talk about the real work that actually moves the needle. Ben, welcome to Whiskey is for Closers.
Oh, it's so good to be with you guys. Thank you so much for having me. What an honor.
Yes.
And thank you for that intro. I'm goodness gracious. I'm honored.
Good. Good. Well, guys, I mean,
Craig, you mentioned maturity. Craig, you mentioned the word maturity.
Here we go.
I'm not sure.
Here we go.
I'm not sure that for this particular crowd.
Oh, it's so good. Well, guys, I mean, speaking of maturity, the real reason everybody listens to our episodes is this question. What are we drinking today?
Nice segue, Craig. So good. All right. Well, you guys know I'm a big fan of Breckenridge Distillery. And I just came back from there. I went up to see my son, Cody, for his birthday. And like the amazing son that he is, he had a whole stash of goodness stored up for me. So this one right here is the Breckenridge whiskey aged. It's finished in a cognac cask. So it's the Breckenridge whiskey it's the bourbon that we're all familiar with. And then they finish it in these cognac casks. And it is amazing. You can't get it here in Georgia. So I had to bring it back from Colorado, like Smokey and the Bandit style. But man, is it smooth. I love it. It's one of my favorites that they do, and they do some good stuff. So there you go, Breckenridge whiskey and cognac casks.
I love it.
I love that. And in fact, it reminds me of this old wisdom passage that says, train a child up in the way they should go, and they will not depart from it. So the fact that you had a kid that has put some of that goodness aside for you, man, that is a testament to you as a parent. Way to go, Steve.
Thank you, Drew. Thank you, Drew. I mean, I made a lot of mistakes as a parent, but that one I got right. So
I love it. Okay. I am up. Now, this one, Craig and I, last weekend, we were together on a podcast. And the reason we were is because we ended up jumping in a car together right afterward, and we went down to the Atlanta area. Now, while we were down there, we stopped at this ASW distillery. And the ASW distillery was actually started by Georgia graduates. Steve, insert you. Go Dogs. There it is. That's what I'm talking about. And I bought one of these Fiddler is one of their main line. This is a straight bourbon whiskey. And guys, I'm telling you right now, the next time you're in town, they opened up a new location right next to the Atlanta Braves Stadium where we did a
This is really
tasting
cool.
while we were there. My goodness. Today, I am toasting to the ASW Distillery, and Fiddler is my drink of choice today. So
That's
that is
good,
what I
man.
went with.
What did
I
they
love it.
fiddle it with? What did they fiddle it with?
They
Because
fiddled a
that's-
lot.
Yeah, that's the
Okay.
fiddler thing is they do like what Breckenridge did here, right? They fiddle with it and how they finish it.
Yeah.
So what was that one?
That's a good question. You put me on the spot here. So check this out. 7 years aged. Okay.
Yeah,
So that's part
okay.
of the fiddling. Then we go to, I got nothing else beyond that. They
Really?
did some strange things to it that, to be honest
Well,
with
that
you,
one
at the
might
end of
just
the
be
day,
like that one might just be the standard, but we
Is it?
tried flights of like all of the different ones, and it was
All the different
yeah.
fiddlers.
it
Yeah.
was delicious.
so good. So I went
Yeah.
with their standard one. It's fantastic.
Yeah. So
I'm a fan.
and speaking of like just bourbon staples, and Woodford Reserve obviously is one of those. And as you guys know, I lived in Louisville for about 8 years and really came to love Derby culture, right? The Kentucky Derby. And so every year they put out a Derby themed bottle. So it's just regular Woodford Reserve, but it's the Derby theme. So this year is Derby 152. Drew, you already got yours from me, but Steve, I have one of these for you for when you're in town next week as well.
Can't
and
wait.
if you can see back here, I know I've mentioned this before, but those are 2 bottles that are unopened and will remain unopened. One is from Derby 150, and the other one is from Derby, I think it was 147 or what. Anyway, it was the only year that it didn't run in the first weekend of May, and it was because of COVID.
COVID.
And so I have the COVID bottle and Derby 150 sitting back there, which is kind
Super cool.
of fun.
That's awesome.
So here's 152. Boom.
There you go. Love it.
There you go.
Good selection.
I guess
Well,
that leaves
Ben?
me.
it leaves you,
well,
Ben.
Thing one, Steve, I actually know the artist who designed the Breckenridge logo and look.
Really?
So that's cool. Yes. I
That's
actually
awesome.
sat in this, I can't remember where it was, but I sat in this place where he had all the bottles he had ever done of their work. So we tried
how cool.
everything. And I mean
Great.
everything. So
What
now
a
that
great
was about
excuse.
5-6 years ago. So I haven't had anything
Okay.
since then, but that's cool. So every time I see Breckenridge, I'm always like, oh yeah. That's thing one. Thing two is I didn't know I need to bring a bottle. I mean, you guys just keep pouring
All
apparently. So
All good.
Yeah,
The
apparently.
conversation gets better and better as you keep pouring.
apparently,
So-
yes, exactly, exactly. I am drinking a very simple old fashioned.
Great.
But actually, the magic is in the glass.
Yeah, I
So
like that
this
glass.
is actually, you can't see it here, but this is actually Mount Everest.
Wow.
No way.
I have a series of mountain glasses. I think
the
Fuji,
bottom?
Kilimanjaro. Yeah, at
Yeah.
the bottom. So it's shaped
Wow,
as Mount Everest
cool.
at the bottom. Yeah. So I'm drinking from like, what is Everest at? 29,000 feet. So that's where I'm
Yeah.
at today. Yeah. There we go.
Love
That's-
that.
Dude, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Everybody
Man,
did
cheers
something
to
unique.
Mount
God,
Everest.
love it. Let's go. Okay, well, let's cheers
Yeah.
to that, man.
Cheers.
Cheers
All
to that.
right.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Okay, so Ben, here's what I want you to do. I want you to get your keys to the DeLorean. We got the flux capacitor fluxing in the backs, okay? And it is ready to take you back to the 14-year-old version of yourself as
Okay.
an entrepreneur, right?
Okay.
Talk me through what was the business that you had in your mind created, right? How did you get this idea at
Okay.
the beginning where it all began? So bring us back there. I want to hear this origin story.
Okay. So we got to take the DeLorean back to 1997 when I
Love
was 14. And it was actually, it wasn't a business. It was literally a desire that I had that turned into what I didn't realize this till later, that it was a blip of the entrepreneurial spirit in me. And so 97 was the year that the Jordans came out. And that was the year of the hologram on the side of the shoe. I was a freshman in high school. At the time, I was destined to play in the NBA. I was going to go to North Carolina first, play varsity early, make my way through, all the things. And I wanted the Jordan 13s, like really, really bad. There was only one other player who had them on the entire squad at our school, and he was a senior. I didn't care about that, but I was like, I got to have these shoes. And at the time, I know it's different now, but those shoes cost around $150, which was an insane amount of money. And so it was a Friday night. My mom and I were at the mall nearby here. I'm in St. Louis, and I went into Finish Line, and I just began to behave as if I was going to get these shoes. And my mom is just sort of standing by with her, arms folded going, "What are you thinking? Like, this is insane." So I try on these shoes. I needed a 10.5, sir, please. He brings them out. I try them on. They feel great. And she's still standing like, what are you thinking? And I looked at her as if, hey, I want to get these shoes. Basketball seasons is right around the corner. And she looked at me and she said, "Ben, we don't pay for $150 shoes in this family. But if you come up with half the money, I'll front the other half." I said, "Okay."
Nice.
Now, here was the key moment. And my mom actually had to remind me of this part of the story recently. I put the shoes back in the box. I walked up to the counter and I said to the salesman, "Set these aside. I'll be by tomorrow night to get them." And my mom was like, "Well, you don't have a job. You have no prospects. What are you thinking? This is insane."
You have no prospects.
Yeah, this is no.
That's correct.
So I was
Thanks,
like,
Mom.
and I said, "I'll be back tomorrow. I'll be back tomorrow." And the guy said, "Okay." So he puts them under the counter. I go home, go to bed. I wake up early the next morning before anybody gets up, and I leave the house. And I go out to my neighborhood and I rake leaves for about 8 to 10 hours straight. Like, I don't even think I took a lunch break. I'm a part of that generation that eats peanut butter on their pancakes. And so I ate a bunch of that.
man.
That literally sustained me all day long. So I needed no food. It was like manna for me for the day. So I raked leaves all day long, and I come back home. I was 4 or 5 o'clock. I can't remember what time it was. And I laid down $80 to $90 in front of my mom. I said, "Let's go get the shoes." And she goes, "Where did you get that money?" I said, "I've been raking leaves all day long." And she goes, "Okay, deal's a deal." So we go back to the store, pulls them out from under there. We buy the shoes, and the rest is history. So I had those shoes and I wore them.
That's amazing.
Up until, and this is tragic, we had a fire in my house my junior year in high school. And I even after a season of basketball, I kept those in pretty pristine condition. Now, the shoes actually made it through the fire. They didn't get burned up, but they were pretty nasty. And I think they just kind of got thrown out and all this stuff. By that point, I had quit basketball, kind of sold my soul to football as far as regards to sports goes. No longer thought I was going to the NBA, but the Jordan 13s will forever live in my memory as that place in my history where I figured out something I really, really wanted, and I decided to go after it.
That's awesome.
Dude,
That
is
amazing.
awesome.
so
First of
cool.
all, love Jordans. I've got a collection of them. I have a 17-year-old boy who's a sneakerhead. I have influenced him to be a huge Michael Jordan fan, especially against the Jordan LeBron GOAT debate. And so he is on the right side of history when it comes to understanding that Jordan is that individual. Now, here's what I want to know, because I resonate a lot with that. What did you know as a 14-year-old kid raking leaves about business that you still use today? What was that about that was just, it was like inherent, right? Like you weren't thinking necessarily, I'm going to build a business and I'm going to use these kind of things. But like, what was that inherent understanding inside of you that you still incorporate today that was true then, that is true today?
I think there's a couple things, because I actually had thought about that. I was like, man, what was that? Was that like the beginning of my business world? And actually it wasn't, because I went in a different direction. I didn't start thinking around business for quite some time. For me, I think it was twofold. The first is the hard work piece. So it's having to work for something that you want to build. Like if you desire, if you want it bad enough, like you have to go out and do the work. So that was the first beat. I think the second part, what I think is to me is a little bit of a side, and maybe I'm more passionate about than the hard work side of it, is simply just the desire to for something, like having a deep want for something. And at the time I was 14, so for me it was a pair of shoes, but that desire has shifted and changed into things much more important. Like for now, it's all about, I've got little ones, I've got a wife, so it's not about a pair of shoes anymore. It's about a legacy. It's about generational change for my family. It's about the things that are most important. And so I think for me that those are kind of the two main things I draw from that story. Because I look back and go, whoa, why didn't I start a leaf raking business, or why didn't I, go from there? And to be honest, at the time, no one was teaching me about business. It was all about the shoes. Like, what do I got to do to get the shoes? That was it.
Yep.
Well, and what's
That's
really
great.
fascinating about that is going, whether you're 14 and the desire for a pair of shoes is the main drive, or whether you're 40 years old and your kids are the desire for the main drive, it's like both of those are main drives. There's like energy that moves us to go and make something happen. Now, you have made a lot of choices and decisions through all of that. My guess is that you made some bad ones, right? What did you have to unlearn through that process as a 14-year-old kid to becoming an adult and this process of learning and developing and growing? What were some of those things you had to unlearn along the way?
Gosh, how much time do we have, guys? Do we have, what are we on for the 3 hours?
As
Are
much
we
time as
paying
you
by the
want.
hour?
Yep. This is now going to be a Joe Rogan podcast.
Until
4
the
hours
whiskey
later.
runs out. Yeah, until
Yes.
the whiskey runs out. Yeah.
I got a
Yeah.
full
I mean, I
bottle.
just opened this, so we could be here for a little while.
I think, gosh, guys, this goes back to why I do what I do. To be honest with you, it is, and it's still something that I have an ongoing conversation with myself and those closest to me on an ongoing basis, is not looking to do what I do in acceptance of others, but being who I am no matter what, and letting so kind of falling away from those people pleasing spaces and desires. I spent probably through college up until into my early 30s, to be honest with you, really navigating that hard. And what I mean by that is falling so far into those people pleasing tendencies. And I realized I ended up building things that A, didn't matter, and two, became a person I didn't really believe that I was meant to be. And so those are the thing. That's honestly, like, when I look at the way that the language I use in my world is it my true self or my false self?
Yeah.
And the false self is built upon behaviors that drive me to patterns and habits that aren't good for myself, for my soul, for my inner world, that ultimately drive those closest to me further away. And then there's my true self, who oftentimes doesn't look like how the world sells it, but it's actually where I find peace and contentment and for my soul. And at the end of the day, 20, 30, 40 years from now, I've built something with God that allows me to go, yeah, that was exactly what I was supposed to do. For me, there's probably several other things, but for me, it's that people pleasing aspect that I go back to of, what does it look like inside of this conversation, inside of this deal, whatever this is, that I can just be myself and walk away from that going, yeah, I wouldn't change anything about that at all.
That's so good, man. I think, I remember the first conversation that we had, Ben, and there was such a connection around that piece of it. Just the showing up as our authentic self and not the false self, which is really difficult to do, right? It's hard. And I think especially, I don't know, maybe I'm being overly generalistic here, but I feel like men struggle with that more than women do. I feel like women are better at being authentic than we are as men. I don't know why. I've got theories, but anyway, I just remember that conversation, and it meant a lot to me. And one of the other things that we talked about was this concept of mining for gold. And you talked about that, and I love that too. So I'd love to hear you unpack that. What does that idea mean to you?
When you say money for gold, you're talking about, give me a little bit more what you meant, because I'm trying to remember our conversation too.
Well, we were basically kind of talking about this idea of serving founders, right? And helping them in their journey. And there was a piece of it that was about, finding the purpose, right? Like you were talking about the purpose of the shoes, were the purpose for the raking of the leaves. And every business owner has a true purpose that isn't just about the money, right? And that's the gold that we were talking about, mining for that. And so just unpack that for us a little bit, because I thought it was really good.
Sure. Well, the question I ask a lot of entrepreneurs that I talk to, and I have had several people use these words when they describe it back to me. So these aren't my words. They say, this question you just asked me haunts me. And I asked them, it's very simple. I said, hey, where's the bus going? And most of the time I get silence like that. It's like, I don't know. Okay, we should probably figure that out, because otherwise you're going to drive this thing off a cliff, and you're going to take everybody else with you. And off a cliff could mean several things. It could mean bankruptcy. It could mean it ended in marriage. It could mean your kids hate you. It could mean all of those things. It could mean you just shut down the company and move on to something next. There's lots of ways that you could interpret that, but unless you understand the drive behind it, which I would argue, if we want to talk about men for a second, most of that is just the validation they're looking for. They're looking for, if I build this, people will look at me, people will see me. And I can say that because I'm a recovering man who's one of those people. Is if I will do the thing, someone will look at me and say, way to go. You have what it takes. You can do this. And so for me, the gold is found in that specific purpose. So if I can get a founder, an entrepreneur to answer that question wholeheartedly, and that's a very key phrase there, wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
We're on to something. I had a coach, dear friend of mine. He's a sage. He's been in business for 50 years. Built a company from scratch in his 70s. Now he's retired. Those are the kinds of guys I love talking to because they have wear on the tires, and like you'll learn just about everything there's to learn. And he was coaching me one time and he said, Ben, what are you after? He was asking me essentially the same kind of question. I said, I just want peace. He said, okay, that's a good answer. So why are you doing this thing over here? And I'm like, I don't know. And so so it's a question that I have to wrestle with even from time to time, is like, what's the thing behind the thing? You know? And so behind all of that question are wounds, trauma, inner work that all inform the behaviors that you all talk about on this podcast that inform the businesses that we build, whether it's on rock or on sand. And you all have stories, I do too, of men and women who have built something that literally goes crashing down because they're not willing to do what's most important. And that's that inner work.
Yeah, that's so good, man. And I know that this is the kind of work that you're doing through Breakers Consulting. So I want you to talk a little bit about two things. One, the how do you do that? How do you get a founder to open up like that? Because you got to create a significant environment of safety before someone's going to go there. Right. So I'd love to hear how you do that. Talk to us about that. And then tell us about the deeper meaning that flows into with Breakers Consulting and what you're doing there.
That's the first answer to that is an ongoing relationship. And so there's lots of bullet points that fall underneath that. And what's interesting, and this is a conversation I have with a lot of people close to me in my world who are helping me inform kind of what we do and how we do it. But I gravitate towards, and they gravitate towards me, people who are very much interested in doing the work. And by doing the work, I mean doing whatever it takes to become the person they want to be. And specifically that looks like therapy, or they're willing to hire a coach. They're willing to include other voices of people that are whatever. So I'm not typically drawn to the very money-driven, profit-first people. They don't like my energy. And quite frankly, they really don't like my conversations because I just go deep really fast. So they're
they don't want to go there.
Yeah, they're not interested. And I actually was just in a conversation with one of those people recently. I was in 10 minutes and I'm like, oh, this conversation's going nowhere. Like this, we should probably end this call now because this is not going to work. And that's okay. And so so I'm drawn to a particular individual who's willing to look at themselves or have somebody hold a mirror up to them and say, I understand the power of what my energy is bringing to this or lack thereof. Can you help show me that specifically? And so those are the kinds of people I just love meeting in general. I call them transformational conversations. I was in one just this morning of a guy who is in a sales role, consulting role, and doing incredible things. And right away, 10 minutes, I'm like, oh, yep, we click. We're here. Like these are the kinds of people I hang out with. So my goal is just to get into as many of those conversations as possible. Yeah. The reason for that is because when you're open, trust drives quickly. And so while you can't do trust, I'm going to do behaviors that lead to that trust for them. I'm going to listen really well. I'm going to ask the only word I can think of is interrogative. Is that a word? It is now.
Sure. We can make it a word.
Let's make it.
Interrogative questions that really interrogate that person, and they're not afraid of it. And for me, that's part of who am I? I'm going to show up as a deep well. How will I be received? Okay. So to that second question, then, how does that work in the process? I've developed some assessments that start surface level that help a leader understand from their perspective and from the team's perspective, there's a gap somewhere. So they're believing and thinking a certain way about their organization, and their team is believing and thinking a different way about the organization. And In between those is a gap.
Yeah.
And I have actually, a friend gave me this phrase. He says, it's called the clarity tack. So when you have a score, so the assessment create a score, and what we do between the leader and the team, if in certain areas the leader is at a 5 and the team's at a 2, well, you got a 3-point clarity tax. That's probably costing you money somewhere, is my guess. Right. And so if the leader's willing to look at themselves in the mirror and go, it's not even a what's wrong with me. It may be, what am I not communicating?
Yeah.
What am I not saying? What am I not sharing? It sounds like I'm not showing up as my authentic self. And so if we can see that 30,000 foot view through conversations, we're willing to go down to a 5, 2 foot, 1 foot view of actually who that leader is. That's where a lot of that real work begins. So it's not something that's instantaneous. It is relational work that lasts quite a while. I'm interested in going deeper with a few than wider with many. That's just where I'm at in my world. It's where I feel like I can do the best work.
That's so good, man. And that clarity gap score is, man, I've lived in that as someone on a team trying to follow that leader, right? And I'm sure that I've created that gap in my own leadership. And it is I think for me, what I've experienced, Ben, is that it isn't, maybe it's communication, right? There might be just some lack of clarity in communication, but I think most of the time it is that I'm going to call it fear. It's fear to really share the innermost passion that I have in my why, because I think it's so personal. It's like, no one's going to care about that. But that's so wrong, because I think people actually do care about that. And that's what they're attracted to. But we fail to share that as a leader many times.
Yeah, we do. We got to get off those surface level conversations. They just, and I would argue, Steve, I think more than ever, they've actually stopped working. They just, and I realize it's hard to go deep with people quickly. I'm not trying to be like this guy who just steps into every conversation and say, tell me about your feelings and your darkest memories. I'm not that guy. Okay. Okay. I'm not, that's not me. But I also think people are really exhausted at trying to play face to a person that they really don't want to be anymore. It's exhausting. Gosh. And I'm saying that from example. Like, I'm like, it's so tiresome. It really, really is.
So good.
Yeah. Man, have I been there. I was actually, as you were talking, it triggered a memory back to when I was 31 years old. So that was 16 years ago.
I thought it was 6.
And don't worry about it. It might have been 5 years ago. So I was listening to this teaching by Andy Stanley. And Andy Stanley said, there's 2 questions I want you to ask yourself. Who are you becoming? Why is that important to you? Who are you becoming and why is that important? And I can remember listening to that, and it has resonated now for 15 plus years, that question. And the reason that was triggered was because I was looking at your website right before we jumped on here, and there are these couple of visuals that you use of these, the way I would describe it is this kind of bunching up of ideas, of things that we do, and it's this mess, right?
Spaghetti.
The spaghetti mess. Spaghetti noodles of just like all this stuff thrown together. And as visionary leaders that sometimes can find themselves stuck because they're drowning in all these ideas. And I can pull myself back to that 31-year-old self where I had just created something brand new. When did you realize that this just ideas all over the place was kind of the problem, right? Where it's like, I've got these things, I've got these ideas, but they're jumbled up in all this mess of like activities and ideas and thoughts and things I need to do. When did that crystallize for you?
When I lived it myself, that's literally it. Like the breaker's journey is a journey I've taken myself. And I can go on like daily, it feels like, because I'm an idea guy myself. Yeah.
Then as you're doing that, share the picture of breakers, like, because there's significance there, right? Like, you've got a lot of depth in not only imagery that you use and metaphors that you use, but often we've known each other for a long time, but often even in this conversation, you're alluding to ideas that maybe our audience won't pick up on. So as you're talking about this, unpack just the idea of breakers and what that means for them as business leaders and founders and entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I'll tell you the story behind it, how its inception. Several years ago, I did kind of a interview feedback loop from my clients that I was serving at the time. My main focus at the time with those clients were specifically around brand messaging, marketing, some deliverables. And one of the main questions I asked them, I said, hey, why do you keep paying me? Why do you keep showing up, paying your invoices, and calling me again and saying, can you help with whatever's in front of you? And they said, you just help us get clear on whatever it is that we throw at you. I said, okay. And as I studied those clients further, there wasn't a particular vertical that they all set in. It wasn't like, oh, I'm really good in this industry, I'm really good in that industry. It was like all over the map. And there was not even a revenue point or anything specific I could pick. But what I realized is there were actually four through just, and this is way before AI, I just started thinking and contemplating these clients. I was like, okay, what is it that's drawing these 5 specific clients together? And there were 4 values that I found that drew us all together as one, that I realized that these were the kinds of people that I was attracted to or that were attracted to me. And there were 4 things. The first was which I labeled as they swim out past the breakers. And so what I mean by that is they're willing to swim out past the chaos. So you guys, you're familiar,
That's what I was looking
oceans,
for.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That you get all in this mess and people literally drown in breakers. Like they get in there, and if you get in some high crazy waves, like it's bananas. It will kill you.
Yeah.
And they're willing to go out get through all of that to learn how to get through that and swim out into open water where they can build the things and do the things that they really, really want to do. So they're willing to take the risk of going, that's a little bit of a scary water. There's going to be some chaos along the way, but I'm willing to go there in order to get out to where I really, really want to go and where I actually belong and what I was made for. And that's, to me, so that's just like, I'm always like, let's go. Here we go. I'm in, and where are we going? That's really the answer. And it was a bread company, and it was a software company, and it was a guy making water bottles. I mean, it was just all over the map. I was like, I don't care what you're doing. Sounds like we're the same kind of people. So let's just go for it. So getting back to the spaghetti idea is these are leaders who have all these ideas, myself included, and they don't know how to get through that loop. They just I just keep running around in circles. And it's not because they've done something wrong. It's not because they don't have the talent, or it's not because they don't have the strategy. It's because they just got too much. It's just chaos. Like we're all there.
Yep.
Like it's like, I don't know what to do with this. I actually need some outside eyes to go, hey, it's this. You think it's that? Goodness gracious. Thank you for that. I really appreciate that. How much do I owe you? It's like it's that sort of thing. So did that answer your question? I kind of went off on a tangent there for a second, I feel like, but.
Well, I caused the tangent.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
No, but I think it was good.
Yeah.
Drew, anything else to double click on there?
No, that's exactly the pushing past the breaking point, because the breaking, right, of the waves coming in and crashing down on you, many times that is the stalling moment. That is the moment that crushes, that kills, that destroys the dream. And when it's the pushing past and getting out into that open space, that's where that clarity starts to form. And I think, at least for me, what I've noticed in my own life is when chaos is at its greatest, that has turned into the moment of going, keep pursuing, keep pushing, because if you keep going, clarity is going to come on the other side of this. It's at this point where if you decide to give into and just be drowned by or be taken out by, that's where the dream stalls, dies, kills. But when you keep pushing, that's where the clarity starts to emerge and start to become really clear for you. So I think that's a beautiful way of placing that.
Can I give you one more thing? I found
Please.
recently that I feel like is actually the linchpin to this whole piece, and I've had to go through this journey myself. So everything I'm telling you guys, it's like I'm actually either working through or have worked through, and so I just see myself as a guide who is on the mountain saying, "Hey, here's the path. Like let's just go this direction." Okay. I was having a conversation with another founder recently, and he was in a previous role in which his years before, which he was like literally going up and to the right inside of this organization, building and growing like crazy, was set to take on some high level leadership positions at a very, very young age. And he was built to run it a certain way inside the culture he was in. And actually the culture was a very good culture, but it was still very hard driving. You needed to perform. There were lots of things. And he's in a role now, similar industry, but needed to behave and work a different way. And I asked him, I said, are you still using the same operating system you had at this previous place you worked at? And he's like, he said, oh my gosh, yes. I said, that's not going to work over here.
Mm.
And the way we change, the way we update or upgrade, however you want to use the term, the way we upgrade that operating system is through your identity. He was still living out of this place that was still causing all this chaotic behaviors in his new role. And he didn't know what to do with himself. He's like, I don't know how to behave. I don't know how to act because I'm living out of this identity that was placed upon me in this previous place. And I don't know what to do now. And I've actually had a few of those conversations, which is so it's a theory still I'm working on, but I think it to be true of most founders aren't willing to go from this is who I've been, this is what I've done. And unless you're willing to change that, your organization will likely stay in the same place. It may grow somewhat. There may be some growth, but it's not outlasting growth. It's not something that leads to the legacy that ultimately I'm pretty sure they want to build.
Gosh, that's so good. I think one of the things, Ben, one of the visions that we have for this podcast is we know that there are founders that are listening to it, and there are aspiring founders that are listening to it. I happen to know that there are some young men and women in the town of Breckenridge who aspire to be founders one day, who are listening to this because they want to learn what is it that they need to know when that day comes. And one of the key learnings I think that you've just illustrated is it's really difficult for us to see that realization without somebody else speaking into the situation for us, right? We need to have the outside perspective that is able to come in with fresh eyes without all the baggage and go, bro, this is what's happening. Or ask that really strategic question that makes somebody go, crap. You know what I'm saying? So that is big. That's huge. And so I love that you illustrated that in such a great way. And we had an experience like that just a couple weeks ago. Shout out to Andrea Beach. So someone who helped us.
Holly.
Yeah, and Holly, we've had so many people that have been speaking into kind of where we are, and it's just so valuable. So I'm grateful that that you do that for founders, and I'm grateful to be a recipient of that kind of wisdom. So I love the metaphors. You've got so many great metaphors, and one of the metaphors that I have heard you talk about is founder building on sand as opposed to building on rock. So can you unpack that for us a little bit? Because I think there's a lot there.
Well, yeah, if you think of, so the metaphor to me, I mean, we're obviously digging into what Jesus taught about, and there were lots of different ways we could take that. You know, Jesus specifically was talking about his teaching. So if you build your life upon my teaching, this is like building upon a rock. Okay. Well, if we get to the core of what Jesus taught about, it was around who are you? You are a son, you are a daughter of God. And what does it look like for us to accept that in whatever role that we're in particular season we're in? And there's so much we could unpack with that specifically. But what we all see from day to day are founders who, because they have either lack the desire, the resources, or the know-how to do that internal work, they're just literally building on sticks because they're building upon behaviors and habits that won't last very long. And the reason for that is because they're not addressing the things that have brought them to those places. So if you just imagine a founder who is built in a home where I love you if you perform, like they were never told that, but that's what they heard. Yeah. That was the subconscious message they took in. They're literally going to build their little kingdom off of performance. Great. Because we're all looking to be loved. That's literally, we all want to be seen and heard and loved. So I'm going to do everything I am. The problem is that breaks down very quickly. Some people in their 20s and 30s, some guys get to their 60s and go, I just wasted my life. And what do I have to do? What can I do about this now? Yeah. I coached a guy years ago who said to me, early on, wildly successful in a sales industry. I mean, insanely successful. But he tore down his family along the way. He said, I would trade it all. I would give away every $1,000,000 I have to do it. I wouldn't do it again. Yeah. And I said, really? He said, nope, not a single bit of it. I would live meager life to have my family back. I was like, okay, that says something to the man. Now he's done the work. He's realized the places. And so this is the first time I've thought about this, Steve. So this may not sound right coming out, but like, cause you asked the question, but like I view our world in the marketplace as people who are building on sand for looking for rocks. They're searching for places to find something because they genuinely want to build something incredible. But what they don't realize, it actually starts with their inner work. That's where those rocks are found. And so that's what I feel like is part of my mission and part of my job, is to say, hey, let's call it the greatness in you, what God has given the ability to do. But there's a lot of work to be done along in the process.
Yeah. Dude, that's so good. And you touched on in a very, really powerful way the cost of building on sand versus rock, which is literally our legacy, right? What signs can we look for as founders that might suggest we're building on the wrong thing?
Practically overworking, so not resting. I think that's a key. I'm a huge believer and proponent that the enemy doesn't have to keep us from sinning. He can just keep us busy. And by keeping us busy, we don't have enough time to actually sit around and think about or actually feel our feelings. And so most we'll just use founders here for the example. Most founders are left not ever dwelling in their sadness or grief or frustration or anger, because they spend too much time working hard, and which means they spend too much time working. So I think busyness is a huge, huge component to that. And then from there, I would go to, and this is the beautiful work you guys do, is taking on more than they were meant for in a particular season of their organization. And so they are doing all the things, doing way more than they were supposed to do, doing more than they were meant to do. And their team is literally degrading around them. Talk about sand. It's like, he doesn't trust us with anything. He or she won't give us the things that he knows that we can do, but won't let us own it, or whatever that is. I mean, there's a long list. And especially with some of the teams y'all work with that are smaller, 10, 15, 20 people, or maybe a little bit more, you're going to feel that a lot heavier. And so if you have, I'm just more convinced that if you have a leader who's not worked through their own ish, everyone's going to pay for it in some way, shape, or form. And unfortunately, for those who sit a little bit further from the leadership desk, they're actually going to pay for it with no job.
Yeah.
Like, that's the way they're going to pay for it. And then the leader pays for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the way
That's a
that
long
you
list.
framed that, no, that's really good. And the way that you framed, you said, you referred to it as that side of you, I'll call it the shadow self, right? Or that side of you that you're not happy about. You're just like, man, where is this anger coming from? Where is all of this coming from? And especially in sales, there's really an important piece of doing that inner work, right? Of discovering, of finding out, where does this reside? Where does this come from? And that's really important, because that shadow self leaks. It has to go somewhere. It's energy. It's going, hey, listen, if I don't deal with this, this is going to come out somehow, some way. So let's identify it. Let's start to figure out what that is, and let's start to work through it, because at the end of the day, even in the sales world, that begins to impact how we show up on calls, how we show up in conversations. So kind of bringing it back to sales, which is what we do here, talk to me about what's the relationship between being strategically clear and actually closing deals, because there's a relationship that happens there. There is a direct correlation there. So I would love to hear you kind of describe in the sales setting what that relationship between that being strategically clear and actually closing deals, what that looks like.
I will use my marketing hat for the moment. I think it begins with an abundance amount of clarity in the exact problem you're solving for that person, and not veering from that at all. And which is key, because, and I've been in this place more times, and I'm a snowboarder, but I'll just say I'm out over my skis, where I start making promises, I'm like, and I'm like, what the hell why did I just say that? What was I thinking? Right? Yeah. That's not what I do. And that's the shadow self. That's me. I'm just trying to get the thing. I want to get to close the deal, because scarcity, whatever, right? We could go on that for a while, but it's dialing in. This is what this is. This is who this is for. Let me know if this is for you. And I'm realizing there's more to that conversation than that. But I was in a conversation just yesterday with a CEO around these very ideas. I said, here's what this is. Here's what it's not. And I know this person pretty well. We've done some other work in the past. We have a great relationship. So it was full on honesty, which I think helped for both of us in different reasons, because we were not afraid to say no either way. But he, at the end of the call, he's like, I just don't think this is for me. I said, okay, cool. Right. Let's keep talking, because I actually think it was more of a not yet, less of a no. It was more of a, let me contemplate all these things in the middle of my chaos. I'm like, okay, go do that. And I'll be here. and I'm just a phone call away. So to your question, I think it's the problem you solve and sticking to those guns. We are full. Sorry if this is a little bit of a tangent. I've been really frustrated lately that our world is full of 22-year-old experts who have claimed to solve every problem under the sun, and they actually haven't. Sorry, that is soapbox moment for a second. And so I'm just at the place now, guys. I told my wife this the other day. I said, I'm not sure if I'm interested in listening to anybody unless I've heard about their suffering. Like, unless they tell me where they screwed up, where they've, I'm just done. I really am. If you're trying to get my attention by saying we can do X, Y, and Z by A, B, and C, I'm like, how have you been hurt?
Right.
Yeah.
I won't ask that question. Well, maybe I will. I don't know. But that's just where I'm at. So it's just getting back to the authenticity. I'm at a place now. Part of my journey is as insurance sales. And in that place I've been in where I've just like, here's what this is. You either want it or you don't. And they're like, okay, I'll listen to you. You're not going to like, this is either for you or it's not. Like, I'm not, there's no pressure here. Just tell me yes or no. And they're like, oh, okay, well, that makes me feel better. Yeah, because this is the problem I can solve for you. If you want that problem solved, let's get it done. If you don't, okay. Sorry, a little bit of a tangent. You can tell I got a little passionate about that.
Love that, bro. I love that stuff. That's so good. I have people who know me well have heard me make the statement that if you don't have scar tissue, I don't trust you, which is what you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
And
how have you suffered? Yeah.
Right. How have you suffered? Right. I mean, life kicks our ass over and over and over again. But if you haven't had to experience that, then it's just really hard to trust the wisdom that comes out of you because you don't really have it because life hasn't kicked your ass yet. But it's going to. It's coming. It's just a matter of time. You've been lucky. You've avoided it, but it's coming.
Yeah.
For sure.
So I think, when I think about a blind spot that we have, that's one of the blind spots I think that a lot of people have is just a lack of appreciation for the scar tissue. Instead of seeing that as something that's made me better, something that's made me stronger, they see it as almost like a weakness, right? I want to hide that. I don't want to talk about that because it reveals the fact that I made a mistake or I suck or whatever. I see that as a blind spot in a lot of people, just people that I'm in relationship with. I gravitate towards the people that don't do that. I gravitate towards the people that are willing to say, yeah, I messed up or I got, my butt kicked here and here's what I learned from it. And they're willing to share it. But put this in the context of founders again, because that's our audience. What's the biggest blind spot that you often see with founders that, if they're listening today and they could walk away and go, let me be a little reflective about that. Maybe that's a blind spot for me. What's the biggest one that you see on a repetitive basis?
I'm going to say the first thing that came to my mind there, and I hope this comes out right the first time, but they're trying to build something of which they're not the person who could build the thing yet. So they're not a version of themselves that follows in line with whatever that is, be it size of company, be it the leader they are. So they're kind of doing the fake it till you make it thing, which I'm really not a huge fan of. I understand there's some degrees of that are a little bit true.
Yeah.
There's a necessity of that to some kind. I need to probably process that a little bit more. They haven't become the person who can build the thing or lead the thing that they ultimately want to build. And so practically that looks like an unmanaged to-do list, micromanaging, overscheduled, control, all of those things, which again, those are just feel like elementary behaviors, but we just see over and over and over again. But it's the people who, and so the number one emotion I see from those leaders is fear, is concern, dread. What if I stop? What if I don't show up? What if so it's all about what if I don't do X? And that's really the wrong question. To paint a picture, the people I love being around, and I think you guys would say the same, are people that you know what it feels like to be in the presence and you go, this person lives without fear. They're like, oh my gosh, like they're just abundantly them. And that goes back to a quote I love by an author I dearly respect, a mentor from afar. He said, let people feel the weight of who you are and let them deal with it. The problem is most people are throwing weight around that they shouldn't be thrown around. It's just leaving waves of destruction. But if you walk in who you truly are and you've done the work and you've actually become the person who can build the thing, goodness gracious, you're a force to be reckoned with. And I mean that in the best way possible. People will follow you in droves.
Mic drop. There you
Mic
go.
drop.
Thank
Well,
you, sir.
and Ben, unfortunately, we are at our time. But for anybody that is maybe swimming in the chaos and they're ready to go out past the breakers, how can they find you? How can they connect with you?
Yeah, breakers.consulting is the best place to find me. Right now, you can book a clarity call right there on the website. It's very simple. It's really a quick assessment we do to just see where you're at, to see where that conversation can go, and we just take it from there.
Awesome.
Pretty simple. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we wrap every episode with a toast. And this week there was a vote, and Steve voted out Steve. So Drew, you are our permanent Toastmaster. What do you got for us
Yes,
today?
I voted myself off the island of toasts.
How does that
voted
even
himself out.
work? That's hilarious. No, that's awesome. Okay. Well, just so you know, this is a great, I love these kind of conversations because these conversations go beyond the producing, right? And to kind of use a wisdom tradition to which you referred to earlier, one of the passages of scripture that stand out to me is when Jesus goes and he's about to be baptized and the Spirit descends and says, "This is my son who I'm well pleased." And I remember that scripture passage because at that point, had Jesus done anything in his ministry? Nothing. Zero. He hadn't performed any miracles, hadn't done anything crazy, hadn't done anything wild, and yet the Spirit had descended and said, "This is my son who I'm well pleased." And so today, I make a toast to all of the founders out there who maybe have not reached the peaks and desires of which they know to be true about themselves. And to all those founders out there who know that what they are doing is good work, may you know that you are loved and you have people out there who are well pleased in you because you are following the things that you know. You are swimming out past the breakers. You are going for the things that are bigger than yourselves. And in you, we are all well pleased. So to you, we set our toast to you and say, congratulations, keep on swimming, keep on going past the breakers. Cheers.
Cheers.
You know, Ben,
Always
obviously
almost
you
great.
are a great storyteller. I love all of your metaphors. And look, if you are a founder that's listening to this and you feel like you're building on sand right now, that doesn't mean you're totally screwed. It just means you're aware. And that is where it all starts. Ben is at Breakers Consulting. That is breakers.consulting. Check out the website. Reach out if you are a visionary leader who's actually ready to do the work. And to everybody listening, if this episode hit different, if maybe you're feeling seen or a little called out, that's the point. Share this with a founder who needs to hear it. And if you've got a story about the inner work that changed your business, we want to hear it. Hit us up, altezasolutions.com/podcast. Thanks for pouring one with us today. Until next time, stay bold, stay real, and remember, the best closer is always the most whole version of yourself. Cheers.
Cheers. Cheers.